Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Voices in My Head with Basil Sands. This is episode 40. Can you believe it? 40 episodes. That's a 40. That's right. That's 4 tens. That's approximately 8 fives. It's also 2 16s and a 4 and 2 twos. Why did you count that many? Oh, because, well, I don't know. Actually, today's guest is James Foster, so let's go right to the show. You're some kind of math whiz, aren't you?
Welcome back to another episode of Voices in My Head. Ladies and gentlemen, we have for you today James Anderson Foster. His official legal name on all things audiobook and entertainment related, and probably other stuff too. How's it going, James?
It's going fantastic. It's going very well.
You're down in Cincinnati, right?
Yes.
How is the weather down there? My folks live just south of Columbus, and so they've been complaining about how the weather's this thing today and this other thing tomorrow. How is it down in your area?
Well, today it was fantastic. Light humidity, maybe mid 70s. Perfect day to be outside. Yesterday, it was cold and overcast and rainy. Day before that, it was in the 90s. And then last week we had snow.
Oh, wow.
No, there was no snow. But still, it is all over the place. But today was good. Today was a good day.
Oh, okay. Good, good. What got you into the audiobook world? First off, when did you start in audiobooks?
I started recording in late 2013, and books started appearing in early 2014. And really, I got started because it was one of the few things that I could do on the federal work release program.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
They let you go with that your what's that name? The replacement name.
Exactly.
And well, stay in a little dark booth. No one actually knows where you are.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard at first because the ankle monitor kept interfering with the microphone. No, actually, it's weird. This is a late career change for me. I loved listening to audiobooks. I was on a long cross-country trip. I was driving from Colorado back to Cincinnati, and I was in the middle of listening to yet another run-through of James Marsters doing the Dresden Files, and it had dawned on me as I was picking, the next book to finish up the leg of the trip, that this was a thing. Like, people did this. This was a job. And so as soon as I got home, I started just, kind of randomly, as you do, avoiding other things, looking up things on the internet. And one of them that I looked up was, how do you narrate audiobooks? And stumbled across ACX and thought, I bet I could do this. Let's give it a try. And I got really lucky right out of the gate, and I haven't stopped since.
You've been a pretty prolific narrator over the last few years. I
do all right.
Let me see. I looked it up earlier, and you have like 160 some books just in the last 5 years.
Yeah,
that's a considerable body of work for.
Well, thank you.
For being, pretty new to the business, relatively speaking. That's
yeah. It only took a couple of years for me to be convinced to leave the old day job and do this full time. That was last year around April. I joined the union, went full-time audiobook narrator, and knock on wood, I haven't had a week off that I didn't plan out ahead of time since.
Nice.
So
nice.
Yeah.
I've been doing it a few years longer than you have, but still haven't left the tether of the day job. And so,
it was so scary. It was, having been raised in, the corporate environment, the idea of having health care covered and the regular paycheck and it was actually a friend of mine who, because I was talking to him about this, he does a lot of sort of life coachy type things. And, I was complaining to him. I said, it's so scary to kind of go into business for yourself as a freelancer
Oh,
It's because you never know. All it takes is a handful of casting directors to just not think of me one week.
yeah.
And if they don't think of you one week, it's super easy to not think of you the next week.
Oh, yeah.
And then it gets even, right? And it was funny. He said, actually, when you think about it, and this is last year, it's almost more scary to stay in a corporate job because you've got the illusion of security there. You have the illusion of the regular paycheck when the reality is all it takes is for one person who has never seen your face or heard your name to decide that you're a line item that they're just not going to renew anymore. And the idea of loyalty, the work environment that existed when my dad was working. He was in the United Auto Workers Union. He worked for Chrysler. Huge in the 70s and 80s, but it was still, had that family feel. It was one of those things where, I mean, he went into the Army right out of college, went to work for Chrysler right out of the Army, and it was expected that once you were hired, you would just be there forever.
Right.
They were going to be there for you, you were going to be there for them, and that's kind of how it was. And that's gone. That's really kind of gone. So,
Yeah.
After talking to him and realizing that, this idea that my paycheck next month and the month after that and the month that's guaranteed. Once I realized that's not true. In fact, I have less control over that than I figured out. I'll pull the trigger. And so here I am.
Bing! And you have made a bang-up job of it, too. You've gotten over, I mean, like I said, you're, I'll say relatively new-ish
Yeah.
in the narration business, 5 years.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah.
But you've knocked out half a dozen earphone awards, is that correct? Or one earphone award and some SOVA nominations.
Yeah. I've had one earphone right over here. I keep it up in the booth. For those moments when I'm feeling like, oh my God, why am I doing this? I can look over my shoulder and realize at least somebody thought it was worthwhile that I'm going. And I think 10-ish SOVAS Voice Arts Awards nominations.
Nice.
I rack up the nominations every year.
Wow. Well, that's pretty good. Better than I've done. This is the only award I'm showing in my booth is, I don't know if you can see it, the
Wizard of the Campfire. Nice.
By the Boy Scout Council up here. And because I told scary stories,
I don't have one of those.
So that's good enough award for me for now, but I sure would like something that, one of those others to sit next to this one so that they look good. So, so when what drew you into doing narration? I know you said you were an avid listener,
right?
But jumping across that chasm from being the entertained to being the entertainer is a pretty significant jump. What drew you into this business?
I started off way back in the early 80s, back in high school. I was one of those drama nerds. I lettered in drama in high school. Absolutely wanted to be an actor. In fact, I remember to this day how crushed I felt when our drama teacher pulled me aside and said, Jim, if you're serious about acting, you're going to have to lose the glasses. So suck it, Mr. Staley. But I kind of gave that up. I went right, kind of like my dad. I went right into the Army after high school. Because I didn't know what I really wanted to do. I didn't feel like acting was going to be an actual viable choice for me, because glasses. Just sort of one thing led to another. I did little acting things in college, not a whole lot. I mean, it really kind of seemed like it was just going to be, one of those things in your past. And just jumping in and narrating and got bit by the acting bug all over again. I realize now looking back on it, like in everything that I've done since then, whether it was, being a psychologist or, teaching or, there was always some sort of performative aspect, or at least me spending a great deal of time talking at somebody. So, really this is like it was a reawakening of an old dream, plus just, sort of rehabbing the loquacious skills.
Well, that's pretty good. It's interesting. I was talking with Bob Sauer in a previous interview, and we were talking about he was a trained opera singer who came to the realization that he ain't going to make a living doing opera in the U.S. He didn't want to move to Europe, so it turned into him becoming a voice actor.
Sure.
But the totally different training, totally different career goal was the perfect training for being a narrator. The breathing instruction, all that kind of stuff that you get. And by the way, kudos on lettering and theater, because I did the same thing also in the early 80s.
Awesome.
Theater and choir.
Skype high five.
Ding! And so, yeah, I got that letter upstairs. My sons have athletic letters, and I have nerd letters. So
you know what?
Okay.
We still got the letter and the jacket. That counts.
That's right. That counts.
Heck yeah.
So, so you left the corporate world behind. You joined up, got into ACX. What has the ride been like for you so far? From the point that you started until now, how would you describe that journey?
Oh, it's been insane. It has been just crazy. When I started at ACX, I did a couple of books right out of the gate, and I think, I get reminded of this every time in the ACX Facebook group when you see new people, when they post, they're so excited. I just showed up. I auditioned for my first thing and I got it. And I remember that. I remember that feeling. I had only done, I want to say, like a handful of books before I got ridiculously lucky. I had auditioned for a zombie apocalypse thriller called Adrian's Undead Diary. And I got emailed by the author, Chris Philbrook, such a nice guy, family friend. Hi, Chris. Hi, fam. And he sent me this email actually saying that I guess he was going to go with some other guy initially. It was between me and this guy, basically. And he emailed him with just a couple of questions. And the guy didn't have a website. He sort of, it was like he was slumming on ACX. And he was like, yeah, well, I don't know how much time it kind of blew him off. He was a little bit rude. He would be doing him a favor if he took his book, sort of thing. And then he said, but I looked at you and you had a website. You were, quick to respond to any question or any email. You were always very professional and courteous. And, when it came down to it, I thought, who would I rather work with? And so he picked me. So let that be a lesson to you. 1, have a website. 2, be nice to everybody. Don't be a jerk. Because that series, that book turned into an 8-book series. It had a rabid following. I did it on royalty share because, I'm brand new. I've been at this for, 4 months or so. And I hadn't yet been, beaten up by Jeffrey K for about, hybrid or royalty or per finished hour deals. And his fan base was crazy. The book sold. I am not embarrassed at all to say that there were a number of $10,000 royalty checks, like in a month, just from this series. It went nuts. It went insane.
That is definitely not something to be embarrassed about.
I was very pleased. Like it's not maybe pre-romance package romance stuff. There were some people that were and are making just money hand over fist doing romance, but it was amazing.
Oh yeah.
And it was just pure luck and being nice and having a website that landed me that. So that just took off, and the high visibility from it then helped, I think, get other other auditions. I was able to put up, oh, hey, I'm the voice of this, or other people heard, other author friends of Mr. Philbrook, so that was fantastic. Then a couple of years ago, maybe late 2014, no, maybe it was even, late 2014-ish or 2015. I don't know. I'm old. Tanya Eby arranged an APA mixer in Michigan. And that's only a 5.5, 6 hour drive. So I went out, met a couple of the casting directors there. Within a few months, got my first publisher, non-ACX book, and it's just been crazy ever since. So yeah, mostly ups, a couple of downs, but even the downs, weren't down for very much. So yeah, I've been doing all right.
Excellent, excellent. Sounds like it. That's a fun journey, and the fact that you were able to jump in and take off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That indicates not. I mean, you said luck, and maybe part of it was luck, but it's also skill, communications, like you said, being nice and having a website.
Yeah.
Those kind of things, those simple little things that we can prepare life-wise.
Sure.
That can help us in any type of situation.
Yeah, I think coming at this late in my career life, well, maybe not late, in the middle of my career life, I think it helped. There were some things that I just automatically assumed coming out of the gate. Knowing this is a new business adventure, I assumed I would be losing money right up front. I understood that this would be something I would need to invest in. So I took me relatively little time to get a booth, to get a professional mic, to get everything set up. I remember once, as soon as I came back from Brilliance, which was my first publishing gig, I went out to their studio. When I went into this studio, I started asking, so what microphone are we using? Why did you choose it for me? Do you think this is a good one? It's the Neumann TLM 102, by the way. It's right there.
A nice little round bubble.
Yeah, I mean, but I got all the information I could. I talked to the audio engineer about preamps, anything that I could do to make my sound here as good as it possibly could be.
Right.
And the engineer was so nice and so helpful. At one point, he even said, once you get everything set up, if you'd like, record an audio sample, take a picture of where all your knobs and dials are set. I'll email you back, tell you if you need to adjust any of them. And so I've super glued everything in place now because I have no idea what this sorcery is.
Right.
But I don't have to think about it until I move. But yeah, I invested in the hardware, the software, knew I would need training. Everybody, it doesn't take long in any Facebook audiobook narrating forum to get a coach. Right. I mean, so right out of the gate, I signed up for a class with Scott Brick, which that was hands down one of the best things I think I did. Soon after that, I signed up with Sean Pratt. So I think right there that really kind of set me on the path so that when opportunity was available, I was able to take advantage of it. That was hugely important as much as skill and talent play a part. And of course I have, the actor's huge ego. So please tell me more about how talented I am. But as much as those played a part, I think even more important was just being able to capitalize on the opportunities as they arose. I mean, nothing would be worse, I think, than having a publisher say, hey, cool, you got the gig, we want you to do it, and then not being able to do the job, right? Not being able to produce the audio they need or to have it sound like I recorded it in my bathroom or, so I was prepared.
That's a good point right there. Like that little sign or the certificate that I showed earlier, the Boy Scouts,
exactly.
Prepared. And
I may have left when I was a tenderfoot, but I got that lesson.
Still, that's stuck. That's good. So you talked about the coaching. Now you've gone from being coached, and now you provide coaching.
I feel weird calling it coaching because it's right now it's a very specific curriculum. It's 4 classes, and I'm teaching a method, a technique. It's called Fostering Characters, and I feel obligated to say every time I mention this because it's such a fantastic name that A.T. Chandler came up with it. He got no pay for it, so he'll
Well,
get
AT, we'll give
credit.
you an extra plug here. That's worth, I don't know, $700-800 right there. Just like
Easy.
you saying your name on this show. A.T. Chandler. There you go.
There it is. That's another 700. But it really came about from my own frustration. My part of my love of acting came from my training in the Meisner technique. Meisner is part of the sort of the holy triumvirate in the method, sort of Russian acting style as opposed to character acting. And the idea is, you go deep within yourself to bring up a character, to make a character authentic. One of the worst things you can ever do as a method actor is act. If I can tell you're acting, you're doing a horrible job. You should be, you should appear authentically that person, which is awesome when you have one character and you have months to prepare and do a deep dive into that character. And, when you have the luxury of being, like Daniel Day-Lewis and can force people to never address you as anything other than, Mr. President, and you don't have to break character, as opposed to what we do where there are times when you get a week to prep and there's 10 to 300 characters. And
oh, yeah. Times when I had, hey, can you start this book today?
Exactly.
Going to send me a script?
And of course, the answer is always yes.
Yes.
Yes, I can. And then you make it work. That's another A.T. Chandler, by the way. You always say yes and then figure it out on your end. They don't need to know about your schedule. They don't want to hear about what you have to move around.
Right.
Say yes, make it work on your end.
Yep. I had that's how I got into IT, believe it or not. My day job,
yes,
I'm an IT systems administrator, but 26 years ago, I had a little booth in a flea market selling computer parts. I didn't know how to fix them yet, other than stuff I had done for myself as a hobby. And some guy came in carrying this computer and says, "This is happening with this. Can you fix it?" And I was like,
yes.
Yeah, I can do that. So I closed up the shop that night, went to the library, went to the bookstore and bought a book on how to do what I was about to do.
Yeah.
Fixed it and got it back to him, made $100, and now 25 years later, it's turned into a career, which is why I haven't dropped it yet, because I have federal retirement banked on this.
Oh, well.
So if I wait a few more years, I'll be okay.
Perfect.
But anyway, yeah, jumping in there, being ready, and then, like you said, saying yes. But you can only say yes if you think you can do it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
so that's where the training and the prep ahead of time.
That's where you have to be ready. Yeah. So about fostering characters, just to wrap up that story real quick. Anyway, so it was frustrating for me. I wanted to bring that level of not only preparation, but also that level of authenticity to my characters, because I don't have like a massive character voice repertoire. My vocal range as far as characters is pretty minimal. I'm no oh goodness, what's the guy? Jim Dale.
Jim Daly.
Certainly, yeah. So I needed to be able to make each character an authentic person in their own right in order to differentiate them. And that's when I turned to my background in psychology and, realized there are already techniques that we use to sort of maximize our brain's potential, to take the preparation that we are able to do. Sometimes you get 2 or 3 lines that describe a character and you've got to build something off of that to create these individual characters, and then to figure out who they are quickly, to remember who they are, and then jump back and forth and in and out of them without forgetting, oh, wait, no, what did this guy sound like? Oh, wait, what was this? All of that stuff I had already sort of pre-learned how to do in psychology. And it was really kind of a hunch I was playing that maybe these could go together. So I put a little something together, tested it out for myself, seemed to work, played another hunch and asked for some folks to beta test the idea, and they went nuts for it. People seemed to like it. It seemed to work. And I figured, okay, so I've got something. And so now, like I said, it's fostering characters is just these 4 classes where I teach a handful of techniques designed to do this thing. And so, yes, coaching, but also when you look at what a lot of other coaches do, it's different. So I feel kind of weird.
Right.
That was a really long story. Sorry about that. You'll have to edit that whole thing out.
No, that's good, because while you're doing that, I'm thinking to myself, okay, how can I drill some details of this out without him thinking that he's giving free advice for something that gets paid for? So,
Okay.
so I'm trying to like draw, but you gave me, I drew it out of you without even attempting. You just poured it out.
Did I? I was going to share a perfect.
But you can give a deeper detail.
Sure.
Pick one of your choice.
Okay. So here's one. Somebody brought up recently. They weren't sure what to do. They had this really hard scene that they were working through, and it was hard because one of the people involved was sobbing. They were just distraught. They were heartbroken. One of the other persons involved in the scene was sort of jovial, joking, laughing, and then there was a handful of other people. But the problem that he was running into was, how do I, because he was really getting into the emotional scene. He's like, I'm so into this one character. I feel them. I'm crying myself. I'm ugly crying while I'm narrating, kind of thing. And then I have to jump over instantly for the dialogue and be this other person, and then jump back in and start feeling this emotion again. It's like, how do you do that without losing it? And I think the great thing about this process is of what we do is that our brain already allows for that. And a great example is something that I actually just went through today because I have a 3-year-old. And do you have children?
I have 3 boys.
Okay.
Grown. Youngest is 17. He's a senior in high school. So
congratulations on getting them all, to that age without killing any of them or letting them kill themselves. So I think anybody that's had kids or been around people with kids, especially around my youngest, who's 3, right around that age, 2 to 3, is going to be familiar with this scenario. Something has upset them, right? Maybe the sock was the wrong thickness, or they didn't want there to be sunlight today, or whatever it is. There's a meltdown happening, right? And they are distraught over it, and there's tears, and there's crying, and then there's sobbing, and then there's something that catches their attention, generally something brought into play by mom or dad to distract them. Oh, look, shiny. Oh, okay, and they're off, and that's it. It's gone. Right? We do this all the time. Like, we always do this. We have this idea in our heads as actors that we have to prep for emotion. We have to kind of ease out of it and ease into it. And, this guy, the premise that this guy was coming into this with was that I have a problem. And that is, once I get into this emotion, how do I get out of it and then get back into it easily? And the answer is, well, how do you do that every day? Because think about the last time you got angry or happy or sad, or like, what was happening the moment before you were feeling that? What were you, maybe you were feeling apathetic, maybe you were feeling happy, maybe whatever, and then something happens, and now you're angry, or now you're sad, or now you're happy, or whatever, and then something, right? And there's no like gradual drift off either, right? We just change, we switch. The amygdala and the hippocampus take care of all of that for us. Really the biggest problem we have, or at least the biggest problem he had, was, getting all snuffly from the ugly cry that he was doing. So you tone that down a little bit and just realize, and there are some physical techniques that you can do to help switch in and out of these 2 headspaces and emotions. But it's totally doable and easy, and we do it all the time. We already, our brain knows how to do this.
Right.
We just have to let it. So
that's pretty good. I can see the psychology degree breaking through in here.
Exactly.
I was actually having this discussion with my middle son, who lives in Montana. He's changing majors. He went in as an engineering student, decided that's not what he wants to do, and he's thinking about psychology. And we had a long chat about it. It's like, psychology is one of those degrees that is useful, and it's more useful, I think, than a business degree, because
Sure.
it can channel into any specialty, anything you do. The tenets that you learn as a psychology major
Mhm.
can flow right along with that. Being able to
Absolutely.
think and do this job without going insane. I mean, like you're talking about, we sit here and
Well,
we'll
there's no
have,
guarantee that's not going to happen, but
yeah, well, I'm proof of that. So the I just before we came on the air, I was working on a Scottish project that I'm doing where I have to be this Scottish demon who's inhabiting this young woman's body slowly over
as
time.
one does.
As one does, yes. It's a Scottish thing. And so having to go from not only the accents, but the emotional ranges and all that. And then my wife shows up at the door and says, honey, dinner's ready. And I don't want to turn to her and go, I'm going to kill your soul, honey. That's not what we want to do.
Did you really not want to, or did you just think better of it before it happened?
Yes, well, if I had, she probably would have punched me right away. So my booth is in the garage, and there's too many big, heavy steel items around that she could defend herself.
I was going to say there's some sort of weapon right behind you there.
Yeah,
So
this is my ice hammer. This my son's bought for me for Christmas last year. I'm not a mountain climber. I'm too fat and broken for that. But it's the title of my current book series is Ice Hammer. And so
Nice.
they bought me an ice hammer to celebrate.
And you're ready for the next zombie apocalypse.
Exactly. That's what it's there for. I keep that one there. I have some other stuff to beat things up. I got a bottle of whiskey I can whack people with. Hopefully it'll be empty at that time.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, that would be a waste.
Very much so. Zombies don't get the whiskey. So you went from your corporate job to this job, and now you're into the training, the quasi-coaching, maybe is the way you would put it. But
I'm teaching. I'm teaching.
Informing and instructing.
Exactly.
In that regard, what are some of the things that you see are key elements you wish more new narrators maybe knew right out of the block?
Boy, I think really just being prepared. I mean, it was important for me. Know what you're getting into. Really know what you're getting into. There's a wealth of information out there. I think I'm astounded by the number of I saw that the number of narrators that start that don't know what's involved. And yes, I've taken this job. They said yes, and now they have to figure out how to do the job they said yes to. And of course, there's a tight deadline. Or the number of narrators that haven't listened to an audiobook yet.
That always shocks me when I discover narrators who have never listened to an audiobook.
I don't understand that, because there are so many. I mean, sure, a unique situation may come up. That's certainly possible. However, I think for the most part, just about any wheel that we're going to come across has already been invented. We don't have to figure that out. How are you supposed to handle it? Well, how did the people handle it in the audiobooks you listen to? So be prepared and be educated. Find out what it takes to do the job. If you're working on ACX, find the people that are successful there, find out what they're doing, and then do that. I mean, I think really the best thing that I did was to lurk for a while on that Facebook group and just found out what people were doing and then did that. It's pretty straightforward. This isn't complicated. And then once you've got the technical things, the logistical things, then you start working on yourself. This is being an acting gig. This isn't something where you're like, okay, I've done my acting training, so I'm good now. I'm done.
Right.
We're always evolving. We're always working on something. We're always trying to get better. So always coaching, always training, always researching. This is incredibly fun if you love it, and if you do what you need to do to, make sure you're able to take advantage of it.
Right. That's a good point. Incredibly fun if you love it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a story
if you don't like, if you don't like reading books, this is a bad gig for you.
Yeah, yeah. There's a story I often tell about an author who I did a series for. After the first book in this 10-book series, he was like, that's a lot of money that I'm sending your way. I'm splitting. It was a royalty share deal, and making. It's been paying my house payment for the last 5 years.
Nice.
So it's nice. But after the first book, and he saw how much money he was having to share, he was like, I'm going to do the rest of the series myself. I said,
what?
Okay, well, you started a series with specific characters with my voice, and so it'll be jarring to people that listen to the second book and it's your voice. But it's up to you. You own it. So about 2 weeks later, he called me up and said, never mind. This is too much like work. I'm not doing this. I'll stick to writing the books. You do the acting. So perfect.
Yeah.
So getting in there and loving it enough to work hard for it.
Absolutely.
Get you those certificates like what's in your window back there.
And it is hard work. But I think anything that you want to be good at and successful at requires hard work, right? I mean, it's
right.
I'm astounded when I hear people talk about how work, narrating work isn't coming in for them. Well, what are you doing to go get it?
Right, right. That's a key. Yeah, it's not going to float down the street of your little suburban home or whatever and just pop up and say, "Hey, narrate me."
So, right. Not until you're, Simon Vance or Scott Brick or
right. And
they've already got those jobs.
Yeah.
So.
And those guys went through the same difficulties 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And so, it's not like, oh man, I just want to be like that. It's like so many college kids that graduate college and expect to become a CEO or a vice president at 23. Right? Like, yeah, no, you'll be the mailroom guy.
Exactly. But the current CEO was also the mailroom guy when he was 22 or 23.
Exactly. Exactly. You got to grow your way into this business. Have you? Yeah. You mentioned the Chris Philbrook books, those zombie horror stuff, and I've seen on your Audible page you've also done a lot of inspirational, a lot of self-help, a lot of politics, a lot of general stuff all over the place. Do you have a particular genre that you really enjoy working in more, or are you just kind of open to whatever?
That's a tough one. I'm open to doing whatever. I think mostly because I love reading and I love performing, and I love learning new things. It's so the broader range of books I'm able to narrate, the more cool things I get to learn. If I had, if I had to pick a genre, sort of that urban, paranormal, supernatural, non-romance, sort of, the Harry Dresden, the Iron Druid, these sort of kind of, what's a good term for it? Or is there a, is it,
kind of like YA thriller?
Not so much YA, but just the urban paranormal.
Yeah,
kind of.
Paranormal. I think that's its own genre.
I just every time I like look up books for it, like they're always the shifter romances. So not quite that. I've done one romance title under a pseudonym, and I think the reviews for that were the narrated male sounded old, or too old, and also boring. So, which I mean are both are not, I mean neither things that you want in romance. So I think that there's a reason why I've
Unless
done
you're
one.
reading romance specifically for old rich guys who have hot young wives.
Exactly. Well, and even then,
so they want to have that 80-year-old sound with the 25-year-old woman. So.
Yeah, but even then they'd hire Sebastian York and say, can you sound like an 80-year-old man?
A very sexy 80-year-old man like me.
Exactly. That was a good run.
Nice. Very nice. That leads me to the next segment of our show, where my housemates, my renters, like to come up and they like to get involved in the show as well. So if you don't mind, the boys are going to come in. Hey, boys, it's your turn now. Oh, good, Mr. Basil. We're going to come in there and, there he is. Look at that. That's Mr. James Anderson Foster.
He's a neat guy. We've seen him before when we snuck around at the Apex. They never saw us, but we always look at the people there and remember stuff. So, Mr. Foster. Hello,
Yes.
my name is Feely. I'm the eldest of the Leprechaun brothers. And this is my brother Neely. Hello, I'm Neely.
Nice to meet you.
And this is our other brother, Buffin. Buffin is not the brightest one of the family, but he's good for manual labor. Say hello, Buffin. Hello, Buffin. And then finally is Berthold. He's the youngest. Berthold, say hello. Oh, hello, Mr. Foster. We have some good questions for you. We did some research earlier and found out some things we could ask you that maybe, well, we hope they're not embarrassing. So,
All right,
anyway, Feely has the first question. Okay, yes, I have the first question, and my question is, you have a degree in psychology.
Yes.
Is that something where you had to study how to take apart cycles, like bicycles and unicycles or anything like that?
It is. In fact, we had to do an extensive practicum, very hands-on. We had to work on unicycles, bicycles, tricycles. The quad was the most difficult.
Did you have to take all the wheels off at once on the quad?
No.
So it'd like
No.
levitate? No? Oh, okay.
Nope. We had to put them all on at once, though. So that was the
Oh.
tricky part. Yeah.
Like a pit stop crew.
Exactly.
Ah, that's amazing.
It really was.
So I had no idea that that's what psychologists did. But now we know, right?
There you
Oh,
go.
well, I thought actually psychologists just studied psychos, like you. Well, not you, Mr. James Foster.
Oh, thank you.
I'm talking to my brother over here.
Sure.
So when you studied psychology, what was the favorite kind of topics that you studied?
Oh, geez. Relational frame theory was actually my favorite topic, honestly.
Was that like putting a wooden frame next to another wooden frame and comparing them?
Sadly, yes.
Oh,
It's the way that humans take two totally different ideas and relate them to each other. And that's what makes us unique. That's how we develop language. That's how we think up new things.
like pineapple on pizza.
Exactly. Somebody
Wow.
had to take pineapple and pizza, and while the rest of humanity would have never thought to associate them, some, and this is another part where psychology comes into play, some clearly mentally disturbed individual then had the idea to bring those two things together.
So it's like the whole world is actually spinning on the end of a crazy person's fingertips or something.
I'm going to go with that, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's how I've always felt about things in general around here. I mean, if you live with my brothers and Mr. Basil, you never think things are normal. Well, normal is just defined differently, actually. So, okay, we're going to provide you, this is Bertold again, by the way. We're going to provide you with a scenario that
All right.
you have to try to survive. How's that? Ho ho.
Scary.
Okay, so here we go. You're walking down on a beach. There's no beaches in Ohio, is there?
We are landlocked.
Oh.
There are lakes, though. There are lakeside beaches.
Oh, that's right. That's right. There's the big lake, the scary lake, the Erie Lake. Yeah, that's what they call it. So you're on a beach, and it's a beautiful sunshiny. Oh no, it's not sunshiny. It's nighttime. It's a beautiful starry lighted nighttime, and you're walking along in the surf, and everything is gorgeous, and you're with your wife, and your kids are with the grandparents, so you don't have to worry about them. And suddenly, a spaceship lands in front of you, right there on the sand.
All right.
And the door opens, and a guy in a tuxedo who looks kind of like Sean Connery from the James Bond shows comes strolling down the long staircase towards you and says, "James and Mrs. James, come with us and save the universe." But you're not sure what to do. And before you can respond to him, you hear another voice behind you. And you turn around and you look, and here's this 9-foot-tall bald guy who says in a Cockney accent,
"Aye, James, don't go with them. They're bad guys."
"So now, what are you going to do?"
Wow. Okay, so the
And he's
guy
scary
is,
looking, like in a tuxedo, 9 feet tall, like
But
the
they're
size of a Volkswagen bus.
so they're both in tuxedos.
Yeah.
Okay, and
But
one
one
is
is Sean
a Sean Connery.
And the
like
other is
James
Jason
Bond.
Statham on steroids.
Okay, so is it bald Sean Connery or young James Bond Sean Connery?
1963.
Ooh,
Sean Connery.
gotcha. He is clearly up to no good, and he is absolutely one of the bad guys. So I am definitely going with him.
Oh, wow. You like challenges, eh?
Absolutely.
Okay, well,
As my 3-year-old once said to me not too long ago, hey, let's be bad guys and make bad decisions. So
sounds like you have some life lessons to be training your son before he hits the college years. So,
yeah.
all right, well, you guys have anything more to say? I don't have anything more to say. Oh, that's a loud truck going by outside our house. Can you hear that on your headphones?
I cannot.
Good. Then I'll pretend I didn't mention that. If
Awesome.
the audience
So,
can.
but wait, I have to know. Like, did I make the right choice?
Well, it turns out that Sean Connery is actually an alien in disguise. You remember that TV show V from the 80s?
I do.
The alien lizards that were dressed in human skin? Yeah, yeah, you got eaten.
Okay.
And,
Oh, okay.
and the big guy, he's actually our butler, Gerald the Troll. He's a troll,
Oh,
but you know, he's like Batman's troll, that kind of troll.
cool.
He teaches Basil kung fu.
Nice.
Not very well, but he does it. So.
You know, right up until the got eaten part, I was absolutely there for that. So.
But it was a fun space ride in their ship for the year that it took to get back to their planet, where you were on the menu. But
God. Oh, it's see. It turns out that How to Serve People was a cookbook.
There you go.
Gotcha.
But little did they know that using Sean Connery lookalikes was a great marketing tool.
That was absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely. And now we're going to go in and return to what we were doing. What were we doing, boys? We were just actually sitting around drinking beer. Okay, we're going to go back to what we were doing, and we'll see you later. Okay,
Bye.
guys, thank you for coming on. Well, thank you very much for enjoying my roomies, and lot of fun.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for being on the show. And
my pleasure.
What's your website for the fostering
anything?
characters?
Well, my narrating website, yeah, I have a narrating only website, and that's jamesnarrates.com, just all kind of one word scrunched together.
Okay.
And then the coaching site is fosteringcharacters.com. Once again, Fostering Characters, name coined by A.T. Chandler.
Dun, dun, dun. So, A.T., that's 4 times now that we've mentioned you on the air. We're not going to bill you for this, but you're buying drinks the next time you all get together.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much for being on the show, James, and we'll see you around next time we see you.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the show that we have for you today. And thank you very much for watching episode 40. It's like a special anniversary edition, episode 40, even number, you know. This is Gerald, speaking for Mr. Basil, and this show is copyright 2019, Sandman Production Studios of Alaska, Basil Sands and all that stuff. And have a wonderful rest of the day. And whatever period of time after that, until the next time you hear my voice and I say that again, to, you know, add on to the period of time that you have wonderfully. Bye.